March 18, 2020, the day when every martial arts school and fitness center in the country closed. That was an interesting day. I'd seen all of our business literally was just diagonally straight down in the days in the lead up to that, and then boom, to zero. But on that day, I had to really think, like, what the hell are we going to do, right? I've had to lay off staff a couple times. That was very difficult and not anything you want to do as a business owner ever. Yeah, there's been a number of times where you feel like, what the hell am I doing?
Hey, this is Jonathan over at Pu'u Muay Thai podcast. Today, I have Paul Reavlin in on the podcast today. If you don't know who Paul Reavlin is, you probably haven't been around martial arts that long within the USA. Paul Reavlin is the founder of Revgear. Revgear is equipment manufacturing. They make gloves, Muay Thai equipment, Krav Maga equipment. They make stuff for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, kickboxing, MMA. Literally everything. And they've been around the sport for a very long time. They were sponsoring fighters back in the day. This guy was selling like stuff out of his car at one point, and you're going to get into a little bit on that as well. And, he's actually got into sponsoring in Muay Thai tournaments. He's been very involved in the Muay Thai community and the growth of it, and he's seen it from the ground up. So we got Paul coming into us today from LA. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Paul Reavlin. How you doing today, sir?
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I've been following the podcast for a couple of years, so I'm excited to be on it.
Yeah. Well, this whole thing came up. I got to give it to you. Your team hit me up. I was like, hey, Paul was asking why we're not working with you. And they looked and you're like, hey, we're already doing some stuff together where it came into like promoting some gear and stuff like that too on TikTok. You're like, hey, what if I just come up and come say hi? Let's do it, man. I'm in town next week. And he ended up driving up from LA to Ventura. I think it was just after we moved into our new location as well.
That's right. Yep, that's right.
Yeah. So he came up and we talked shop about Muay Thai, kind of things that you're seeing. And what you're seeing, the thing is where it's relevant. How long have you been in martial arts for, Paul?
Look, Revgear was started in 1996. So next year is our 30-year anniversary, right? So
yeah,
it's a long time. I've seen a lot of things come and go. And yeah, so it's an exciting time for Muay Thai, to be honest with you. I think it really is.
Yeah. So from 1996, like when you started Revgear, to now, 30-year span of evolution of combat sports. And that's really because that's when UFC 1 and all that stuff was at UFC 3 around that time, I think?
Yeah, I think I started Revgear right about when the UFC started. I don't remember exactly, but it was similar timing for sure.
Yeah. With that evolution, you've seen trends come and go in combat sports. Like you saw, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, UFC is coming up, and that really brought about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu within the US. And obviously we see where Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is at now, and the explosion that created. Obviously in the art you guys started in when Krav Maga, like same thing. You saw that like blow up. You saw Krav Maga worldwide and all these places that popped up everywhere. And there's Krav Maga programs and certification courses just galore. And
yeah, I think when I started the company, Taekwondo was still pretty big at the time. And, MMA really came about right about the same time when the UFC started, for sure.
Yeah.
And also Krav Maga. We've been through a number of cycles. So MMA exploded in like 2008, I want to say, or 2005, I think it was. Yeah. Krav Maga was really big. MMA has been really big. Right now, BJJ is really big, and Muay Thai, I feel, is starting to really explode. In many ways. It's simmering, or let's just say it's been simmering for a number of years, but I'm starting to see a lot more movement now in Muay Thai.
Yeah. That is the reason I laid all that foundation is so like when you say that comes from a place of somebody who's seen these things happen, when they get to that boiling point and they're boiling over, onto the fire and stoking the flames, right? So let's go back onto Revgear. So 1996, man, what made you want to get started selling martial arts equipment and like,
how did you get into this business, right?
It's so random.
So look, I've been a martial artist since I was a kid, even though there was a very large gap for me. I took karate as a kid, and my mom used to take me to the bookstore, and I would buy like these books. They looked like, they were kind of like encyclopedias of karate techniques. There was no internet or obviously anything back then, but so this was the closest thing I could get to the martial arts until I actually started taking karate. So I started to take karate, but I had that classic 70s experience,
Yeah.
The instructor was an asshole, not a good business operator. He just wasn't nice. I just didn't like him. I just didn't like the environment, which was kind of sad because I think I got to like orange belt or something and I quit, but I actually really wanted to stay in martial arts. I just didn't like that place. So it was many years since that time that I didn't, but it was always in the back of my mind. And then I just happened to run into a friend of mine right after I graduated college who was teaching Krav Maga and said, why don't you come train with us? And so I got very involved in Krav Maga. Krav Maga was my start, and I was working as an accountant. I had worked to become a CPA out of school. I absolutely hated being an accountant. I mean, I was like, this is not for me. I remember.
But little did you know that would come back into, good use later on, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, it's been amazing training, but I had worked in, small business accounting, and I had worked in also in large company audit stuff. So I learned enough that always wanted to have my own business. And so I was really into Krav Maga. I really was into punching and kicking stuff. And so I thought like, this is a business that I could sink my teeth into and get excited about. And so I basically started with a couple product ideas. Darren Levine, who's my instructor, had an idea for the tombstone, which we brainstormed, and I took his idea basically and brought it to life.
The tombstone, for anybody that doesn't know, is it a trademark design?
It's not a patented design, but it was Darren's idea and I made it happen. So between the two of us, we created the tombstone.
And that became like a popular piece of equipment for like a lot of martial.
Honestly, like I've been traveling the country, for 30 years, visiting different martial arts schools. In fact, recently I was in Texas and a number of schools were showing me they were using the tombstone. I never really knew what to expect. I didn't envision it, but some people come to me and say, look, this is an amazing training tool. And that is really a cool byproduct of starting this company. I didn't really know what to expect, but people are like, hey, did you know you've affected people's lives with this thing? And I said, well, I did it because I was excited and passionate to make better ways for people to train, but I didn't realize that it would become this. And 30 years, there's dozens of companies that have copied the product. And to me, that's, a compliment, but I love that it's out there. I did.
Yeah. So going back into it, like when you guys came up with the tombstone, and
I came up with some products for like 4 ideas. I really struggled to find somebody to make these things. I mean, it was 30 years ago. I was in LA. I was an accountant. I was looking for people who could help me bring this ideas to life. As a student in the martial arts, I was holding shields for big dudes, like I'm not a big dude. I'm like barely 5'6" on a good day. And, but I'm holding pads for guys that are 6'2". And when I, side kicks and all kinds of shit, and I felt like my ribs were going to crack. And I'm like, I love doing this, but this I don't love. And so I set out to build shields that I could hold so that I could hold for the big dudes. And I feel like I wasn't going to get injured or didn't hurt, and that's how our kick shield was invented, so to speak. And that design's been copied also and is in, hundreds of martial arts schools around the country. But I set out to find someone to make these things, my vision, and it was difficult. So I started with this woman about an hour south of where I live in LA. And she made truck tarps, tarps that go over trucks and boats and things like that, because it had similar materials that I wanted to use. And when I met her, I was excited. Wow, you have the sewing machines, you have the materials, you have what I need. This is my vision. I'm showing her pictures, and she wanted absolutely nothing to do with the product. She wanted nothing to do with me. So I basically talked her into making this product for me, the samples, the prototypes, which we would test. I'd bring it back up to LA and Krav Maga, and we would test them, etc. And one thing led to another. And eventually she, to get rid of me, she introduced me to a man who was also an hour and a half away named Tom, who had a business building, or he was making dragging dummies for like fire departments. So they train on pulling people from burning buildings and stuff. So this guy also had experience, but he happened to have also made some heavy bags and some other things for guys like Richie Bustillo, Chuck Norris, and even Bruce Lee. So I was like, when I met him, I was like, wow, you made something for Bruce Lee. You're my hero. You're just the guy, right? I grew up watching Bruce Lee and Jean-Claude. I was like, this is like, that's why I became a martial artist. And so that was really exciting. I get really passionate when I talk about it because it was exciting to finally find someone who could bring my ideas to life. You know?
Yeah, like this idea, this lady who's saying like, no, I'm not doing this. It's just somebody who is essentially already doing what you wanted to do with these.
Yeah, and so he helped me make heavy bags and stuff for me, etc. I would store this stuff in my bedroom. I had a bedroom at a place up here in LA, and I would store my bedroom. You couldn't see it, but like obviously if I was speaking to people on the phone, but I had like stacks of kick shields and tombstones around my bed, and I had heavy bags in the corner down in the garage. So it was crazy. I started to call martial arts schools around Los Angeles and make appointments to meet with me and see my gear, right? And so I was often delivering stuff. I had a black Mustang convertible, which is a sweet car to have when you're
especially in LA.
Yeah, when you're in LA in 26. However, the summers can be pretty freaking hot. So I'm tooling around in my black Mustang and going door to door at martial arts schools. And often, if I sold a heavy bag or two or three, I was delivering them out of my Mustang. My dad eventually gave me an old beat up pickup truck. But in the meantime, I was delivering out of my Mustang, which is pretty insane. And the other thing that happened was I realized that, I'd make an appointment with a martial arts school owner and I would drive across town and then they weren't there. I'd be calling them up like, hey, where are you? We had an appointment. Oh, I forgot. Or, oh, I had this going on or whatever. And so, when you in LA, right, in traffic, you could drive not even that far. It could take 30, 40 minutes or an hour. So like when you're in the heat, you're doing this back and forth. I realized after time, there has to be a better way. And so I started calling. I just started picking up the phone and calling up martial arts school owners and trying to sell over the phone. I learned how to sell over the phone.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, what was people's perception of you when you showed up in your black Mustang with the heavy bags hanging out the top? Right. I'm imagining like your trunk probably tied closed, some bungee cords or some shit. So what was the perception? Like, were you able to sell stuff?
Well, I never really took a heavy bag and drove to a place unless I knew it was sold. However, I did take shields. And so I would get out of the car with this giant duffel bag that had all my samples. It had shields, it had multiple shields, and it had gloves and shin guards, the first 4 or 5 products we had. And so I would get out, but honestly, those people appreciated my passion, like this guy's trying to do something different. He showed up at my door. No different than when I came to see you. I mean, yeah, it comes second nature to me. I've been doing it so long that it comes second nature to me. Like I want to meet people. I want to see them face to face and start a relationship with them. We could talk more about it, but I get really passionate about trying to help martial arts school owners grow their business because I know all the things they go through.
Yeah, in you and me, we were just talking the other day about it, like where it comes into some stuff, which we'll get into in a little bit. For anybody that might be listening out there, Paul really means it. Like I've seen you, throughout the years. I think the first time I actually like met you was in Kansas City. I think it's Kansas City, Missouri, for a tournament of champions, if I'm not mistaken.
In Iowa, yeah, probably.
No, I don't think this was Iowa. This wasn't Iowa.
Oh, we did an event in Kansas City, right? We did
Kansas City. So I was out there. We brought some people out there to go compete. So like, and you guys were like the title sponsor of the event. Right, it was Tournament of Champions, like presented by Revgear.
Yeah, it was the Revgear Tournament of Champions for many years.
So, how did that happen? What was your involvement with Muay Thai? How'd that come to be?
Look, as I started over the years and started to sell to different martial arts schools, people would start to ask me, like, "Hey, we really like this product you made. Do you have this? And do you have that?" And so, in the early years, I started to make boxing gloves and shin guards and cups and hand wraps and mouthpieces and all these things because people would start to ask me for them based on the other products they got from us. And so my product line grew and grew. And eventually, right, Revgear became a full MMA company and we sell all kinds of things, right? Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu products, et cetera. If I have to span the whole gamut. But, over the years, I had established certain relationships with some Muay Thai schools and we were selling to Muay Thai people. We had, we obviously make a variety of Muay Thai pads and et cetera, and Thai shorts and things. And I felt like I really wanted to get more involved in the community. But I'd also learned earlier because I had tried to do our own jiu-jitsu tournaments prior to that. The same way we wanted to get involved in these communities. And I learned the hard way, though, trying to put on jiu-jitsu tournaments.
So you guys were trying to do it all on your own?
I had engaged, I had hired a team basically to run jiu-jitsu tournaments around the country, of which we basically made it to 3 cities. We had done California and in Denver and Colorado and obviously in Kansas City. And those are pretty random places. But the reason we chose those places was because the people I was working with knew people on the ground there. And we knew that we could market to those cities, to get people to show up, right? To get people starting from scratch. So I did that for a couple of years and realized that it's a tough business. I enjoyed it, actually. It was actually very rewarding putting on tournaments. But I realized that doing it ourselves was, I've learned in business over the years to stay in your lane, let's do what I'm good at. You're a martial arts school owner, you do what you're good at. I do here, that's what I'm good at. Let me do what I'm good at and let's work together. And so I ultimately looked for partners to do Muay Thai tournaments. And I hooked up with Pam and Pete, from TBA. They were like, well, we have this other tournament that we want to build. And I said, let's do it. Let's build it together. And so we brainstormed it and they wanted to call the tournament champions. I wanted to be involved in a Muay Thai tournament. I said, we'll call the Revgear tournament of champions and let's go out and promote this thing together. So for a number of years, we built, we went out and marketed. We often promoted to all of our clients to send teams to come compete at the Revgear tournament of champions,
Yeah, actually, I'm pretty sure you guys were sending out flyers to martial arts schools because we didn't buy anything from you at that point. And I'm pretty sure we got a flyer in the mail from you guys. From not mistaken.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. I mean, we did everything, it was, phone calls, emails, etc. We wanted to promote the tournament. But I'll be honest with you, being involved with tournaments and events is some of the most rewarding stuff I've ever done in my career. I mean, in like 30 years of doing this, like a couple of things are really rewarding when you make a product and it's embraced by people and they like it and they come back and tell you. And I'm on the road and people tell me how a product changed their life or how they loved it and used it for 20 years. That's amazing. But also, like, when you're involved in an event and you're seeing people have a good time, get experience, learn the martial arts, be part of the martial arts, that is actually very rewarding for me. I found it to be very rewarding.
Well, we were just talking also the other day, Luke Lassay, you would see him when he was a kid at the tournament with his dad.
Yeah, he used to compete there,
Yeah, it's like, you saw the career, you see these people's careers build. I end up going to like professional combat sports, or you just like high level amateur.
Yeah, to see Luke competing in one is really cool when it was like, well, I remember when Luke was just competing at the Revgear Tournament of Champions and we were there and there he was. He was like, oh, yeah, it's Luke. Dean is here. Luke is there. Like, he's competing. Okay, let's watch Luke. It was like those kind of things are really gratifying. I mean,
yeah, well, it's like, you guys had your hand in helping that happen. Right. So,
yeah, I mean,
so Revgear's tournament of champions.
Yeah, so I also that's awesome.
Well, yeah. That's the way I see it. Like, anytime these like tournaments and stuff, like when you think about fulfillment, correct me if I'm wrong, like, what is it that's really fulfilling about for you?
The martial arts has a lot of stigma. There's a lot of stereotypes. We've been portrayed often in the media for as long as I've been in the martial arts. Sometimes we're nerds, dorks, all kinds of stuff. Yeah. And frankly, I've met a lot of really amazing and really cool people in the martial arts. And when I see what martial arts does for kids, even with my own kids, how it really affects them positively in their life and puts them on a course to success, and how many good people I see that like benefit from the martial arts, not even just the art itself, but just from exercising and focus and discipline and all the things that come, the life skills that come from learning martial arts. That is really amazing to me. And so I like doing anything that helps us get past the stigma of getting people into the martial arts. Look, there's a lot of debate over the years about McDojos, black belt factories. It's my opinion we're going to see a lot of that in Muay Thai in the next couple
of years. You and me talked about this.
Muay Thai is growing so quickly. There's going to be, it's somewhat inevitable. But, my opinion is that, look, I want people to be good martial artists, obviously, right? I obviously want people practicing good martial arts. I don't want bad people out there, bad actors, and I don't want people learning bad martial arts. But by the same token, I like getting more people involved in martial arts. So like, if some of those things help more people to get into martial arts, then I am a fan. I obviously want people doing good stuff and good quality stuff like anybody else. Mm-hmm. But I hear about belt factories and McDojos and stuff like that. But I think like the more people practicing the martial arts, the better. As far as I'm concerned, let's just work to get making the martial arts better.
Yeah. And that kind of comes into like a business thing too. Cause like you said, you meet these guys who are, like your original karate instructor, probably knew a shit ton about karate, but probably didn't know anything about running a business, right?
There's no doubt about it. Yeah.
You get the business guy that is running a McDojo, as you could, like some people call it, who is in the same town as somebody who knows their shit in that martial art, right? Typically, the guy who knows his shit in the martial art doesn't know how to market it. The guy who is starting at McDojo has a business model, knows how to market, knows how to sell. And that's where some of that issues come up, where they get some abrasion, because it's like, hey, like this guy who has not even a fraction of what I know is killing it. Why? Right? So I think there's a lot of resentment, I think, from people based on that, but I told you, it was like, I would see stuff in Muay Thai, like for content. I'm like, man, these guys are killing it with this stuff. I'm like, they don't even have a gym. Like, what the hell? I'm like, I need to like step up my game. That's one of the things we started the podcast and started doing content for, because I just saw, I'm like, man, I have to get in on this, because otherwise they're just going to freaking dominate it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because of the McDojo thing, I've seen that happen with other martial arts. And I'm like, man, I'm not letting this happen online for us from Muay Thai.
That's right. Well, look, it's a fine line, right? It's a fine line between business and making money and being authentic or being a purist. You know what I mean?
Authentic.
Yeah, being authentic, I think but I'll agree that some of the most successful people I've ever met are really good at being authentic and still learning the business concepts, right?
Yes.
And to your point, there's some that are better at being authentic and bad at business, and some that are good at business and are not authentic. And so, all we can do is go out there and teach and try to help people and do the best we can to grow the industry. I mean, one of my biggest passions about being in this industry, in addition to making gear and being innovative and trying to do new things, is to meet with martial arts school owners and help them grow their business, help them get over certain hurdles and humps. Because in 30 years, I feel like there's nothing I haven't seen at a martial arts school. I've seen the smallest martial arts school, and I've seen the biggest ones, and I've seen everything in between. And so, like, when I travel and I visit with owners, I like to share with them what I've seen at other places that I think is successful and will help them. And so I spend a lot of time trying to teach them how to sell more martial arts gear, how to sell more martial arts merchandise, but in general, how does that help them with their business and how to grow their business? Even if just to sign up people, sometimes I'm just talking with owners about how to sign up more people, because at the end of the day, that's their core business. They need to sign up people and keep people from quitting,
Yep, that 100%. Like, I've talked about that on here before with some other people, gym owners or just involved in the industry, about how it's a people business, and part of that is making relationships, like what you were talking about. Also, when you came up, you were showing me some stuff you were working on that could help gym owners. You had this online portal where it was like, it had like the gym's logo on it. You had shirts, you even had like Muay Thai shorts and stuff like that too. So tell me a little bit more about this program that you're putting out there, you're starting up.
We have a new program that allows Muay Thai schools to have basically a branded website with apparel, but more importantly, Thai shorts, jerseys, dry fit shirts, beyond just the basics. But the real gig behind it is that, we built it in a way that they don't have to have any inventory. A lot of martial arts schools just struggle with keeping inventory, keeping the right inventory, spending a lot of money on inventory, having the wrong inventory that doesn't sell, and having money tied up in it. And to be honest with you, after 30 years in the business, I'm not going to tell you we don't have that at Revgear too. And any one of the other companies that do what we do, inventory is a thing. Either don't have enough of the good stuff or you have too much of the bad stuff. It's a never-ending game. It's not for the meek. It's not for the meek.
But and that's where it goes into, like, what you're saying is like, hey, you make equipment and you're a manufacturer for that stuff, or retail, and like, we're the martial arts school. Like, let's focus on what we're doing good and how we could support each other, right? Because I'd much rather have you handle that. Like, my staff.
I mean, that's why one of the things I've heard from traveling and seeing so many places is the pain that's involved with inventory. So we came up with a way that martial arts schools can offer these products to their students without having any inventory. And so I'm excited for more. We've started work with a decent amount of schools now, and I'm excited to work with a lot more because I think it's really going to help them.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong. So when you say they don't carry the inventory, you have it online on like this portal that you guys set up, right? It's like a shop, a website. the person orders it, does it get shipped directly to them or does it get shipped to the school?
It can be both, but we like to ship to the school so the school can maintain the relationship with their student. But we have the ability to ship directly to their student as well. So they don't really ever have to touch it.
Yeah, you guys are, for those that know what this term is, drop shipped, essentially.
Yeah, it's effectively drop shipped. We prefer to drop ship to the school, but yes, it's effectively drop shipped. The school owner never touches it otherwise, and they don't have to put up any money. They don't have to put up any money for inventory, and then they can still make money. We work with them so they can still make money selling the product and don't have all the pain of all those other things that have come.
Yeah, and it has their logo and stuff on it and everything too. Like, of course, it has Revgear on it too. It's like, it's co-branded. It's like, I think it's a genius thing. Like, I've been doing drop shipping for us since like 2019, you know, through like various drop shippers like Printify, Printful, but there's no Muay Thai stuff. There's not Muay Thai shorts that you can get made like this where they can get shipped out, and much less like the dry fit jerseys. Like, doing designs of those, it's a pain in the butt, man. It's not easy.
Oh, but not only that, I think like from our customers, they really struggle with you know, the quality out there is shit. You know, it's just shit. You know, and the companies that make coffee mugs and all that stuff, I mean, they'll do t-shirts for you, but they're not making stuff that you want to train in. It's just shit. Honestly, it's promotional junk. It's designed to make, you know, pens and pencils and cups for your business, you know, if you have, you know, not in our type of industry. And so we've been trying to make those things work, and I get that, but, you know, it's not made for what we do. So like,
no, I'm trying not 100%.
You know, I've tailored this so that it works for what we do. You know, like we were going to train in this shit. So we're going to make sure it's legit. It's real. It's good. The quality is the same.
I like it because the thing is, that's one of those things like you can get a dry fit shirt made from one of those companies, but it's not the same. It's like falling apart and stuff like that. Phrase, the quality is not as good. And, you know, for you say it, like you said, we're training this shit. We want it to be nice. So we want it to be comfortable. That way you could train in it for years to come. That's the big thing, is to train. Like, your company's been around 30 years. I would like to think that Paul Reavlin is someone that stands behind his shit.
Yeah, well, look, everything we make has a money-back guarantee. That's just the way it's always been, you know. And Revgear, in our product lines, we make stuff at different quality levels for different price points and what have you. But for the most part, I always approach stuff that when people buy the stuff, I want it to last forever. You know, like, I want real value and quality in everything we do. You know, we have some stuff that's lower quality for sure. We have some stuff that's crazy good quality, and we have everywhere in between. And honestly, I'm affected most positively when I travel and people come up to me and they say, look, I had these, you know, I was recently at a convention. I ran into Krav Maga. You know, he was in the UFC for a long time. We worked with him when he was competing, and he went on and on about the shin guards that he had from us that lasted 20 years. They were the best shin guards he's ever had, you know, and I was like, I was just happy to see him. I hadn't seen him in 10 years or something, and I was surprised. So that kind of thing is really, you know, that's really gratifying. You know, as you imagine.
I've been using the Revgear. I forget which ones, they're black ones you guys hooked me up with for a couple of years now. They've been my sparring gloves, I think, since like 2023, around then, or maybe late 2022. I dig them. They're easy to clean. They're comfortable, protected, good for Muay Thai. It has like the padding and everything like that, and it's set up how I want it. It's a good puncher's glove also on top of it. It's not just like for Muay Thai. Like, I feel like it protects my hand very well, like catching elbows, whatever it may be. So they're not falling apart. So that's a good sign. I've used the shit out of my equipment too. So I'm not like,
awesome. Well, I appreciate that.
Of
I
course.
appreciate that.
Yeah,
I mean, like,
and that's how I split it. Paul didn't know that was coming. This is just me saying it because it's decent stuff. You guys have like a good range of like that low, medium, high quality gear as well. Like, we've talked about this. Like, you have the starter equipment for people who are not sure about investing in their equipment. Hey, you make a budget-friendly one for them to get started. That's going to last a good amount of time until they start, you know, kicking like, you know, bull cow or something like that. Then maybe they need to upgrade their equipment.
Well, yeah, we got something for that too. But look, I like to hear from people. And I stayed away from personal social media for a long time just because I just don't personally love social media. You know, it's a distraction, and, you know, I don't think it's the best use of everybody's time. But that being said, I'm more involved in social media now. It's easy to find me and connect with me. But in general, whether you email the company, call the company, whether you reach out on social media or whatever, I like to talk to people. I like to talk to our customers. I like to hear the feedback. I like to hear, hey, have you ever tried this idea? Or hey, I like this. Have you consider that? I mean, I just like to hear from people. So, one of the reasons I'm glad to do this with you is so that I can just get out there and tell people I'm available. And if you ever want to chat, I'm around.
Like if somebody's interested in that program we were talking about, where you guys make the equipment that's co-branded that you ship out for them, how would they go about contacting Revgear to talk?
There's a lot of ways. The simplest ways are to email us at info@revgear.com or customer care@revgear.com. Both those will make their way up to me. You can hit us up on social media. We have people who help with social media.
At Revgear, right?
Yeah, Revgear is our social media on Instagram and Facebook. And well, we have a YouTube channel, but probably not the best on YouTube. But you can hit us. Now, I'm personally on social media. I'm just Paul Reavlin on Instagram and Facebook, but my name is spelled funny. So if you type in Revlin, you're not going to find me, but because my name is Reavlin. So it looks like Reavlin, but it's pronounced Reavlin. So I'm Paul Reavlin, which looks like Paul Reavlin, but then you can find me. And, any of these ways, just reach out. We will respond.
Yeah. And anybody that's watching, I'll have this down in the show notes as well. So that way you have those details. Or if you're listening to this, it'll be in the podcast show notes as well. Paul, getting into this too for Revgear, everything you do, was there a point in time where you just wanted to quit and just give up?
Yes. Many times. And
the one I would particular that stands out?
Well, on March 20, what was it? The March 18, 2020, the day when business, look, when every martial arts school and fitness center in the country closed and they said, we're closing our businesses for a week.
Hey, longest 2 weeks ever, man.
Yeah, the longest 2 weeks. It took 4 years. And, that was an interesting day, to be honest with you, because, I'd seen all of our business literally not the way you want to see a sales chart go. It was just diagonally straight down in the days in the lead up to that. And then boom, to zero. That was interesting because I had been working on look, when you have a business, right? And I'm sure, Jonathan, you could think the same thing, but my business is a project for me. It's I love my business. I go to work on my project every day. I don't really feel like I'm going to work. I just work on my project that I love to build, right? Now, it's a project that could suck the life out of me some days. And yes, okay,
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Can be brutal because there's all kinds of things. But on that day, I had to really think what the hell are we going to do, right? And that led to all kinds of other crises that came out of the pandemic, from supply chain crisis to we got exploited on prices of containers and all kinds of bullshit, okay, for years. And just to see, when the storm washed away, when the waters receded and it was okay, what is our industry? Now, what is our industry? But there were a lot of challenges in there. There are a lot of challenges. We have some challenges today even, but yes, specifically that day was a rough day. I've had to lay off staff a couple times because of things like that. That was very difficult and not anything you want to do as a business owner ever, if you don't have to. And so, yeah, there's been a number of times where you feel what the hell am I doing? But I will say this, though, like any other business, and I think you'd probably agree, it's if it was easy, everybody would do it. Yeah. And you have to be persistent. You have to not quit. Otherwise,
to show up every day.
You got to show up. That's right.
That's the biggest thing. Is the story you said about March 18, 2020, that was we documented our time going through that process as a martial arts school here on the podcast too. For anybody that's listening, or if you watch this one, people that follows Revgear and sees this later on, we got some of our earlier episodes because we started the podcast in September 2019. So pretty early in our podcast journey. We were in COVID, COVID times. So, like you said, it's not something you want to go through. But one of the things I always learned is you said it, is you got to show up. And for one of the reasons why our academy became what it wasn't because I was the best fighter or anything like that. It was because I showed up. And it was the same thing in Muay Thai. I always just showed up no matter what. People would always talk their talk, whatever it was. And often I'd be the only one that would show up. Right.
That's funny because I was a horrible fighter. Every time I sparred, I got the shit kicked out of me, and I still showed up.
Yeah, you just like, man, how do I suck a little bit less today? Like if I could just yeah, so yesterday I got kicked 9 times. If I can get kicked only 8 times a day, we're winning. So
how do I get kicked in the head less? I think is the question I get saying. How do I get kicked in the face and kicked in the head less? I'm currently getting kicked.
man, relatable. But this is the lesson that martial arts teaches that I think that applies to things off the mat and out of the training environment that you can apply to business. You can apply to your life. You can, these life lessons that you can take, and you see it. We see it. There's a lot of fighters that retire and they become successful business people. Like they do real estate, they're doing like marketing, they're doing that, or their gyms. Like there's a lot of them that end up
there's a lot like
successful.
Look, in this particular sport, it's competition and there's different rounds, and it's no different with business. Every month, we're basically starting a new round, and depending on what's going on in that month or that time of year or whatever, your month is not going to be the same as the prior month, and it's not going to be the same as the next month. It's no different than a round. And you're thinking about, what am I going to do to make the most of this round? I have my opponent. How am I going to go about this opponent? And that's no different in business. It's like you just have to plan and get after it. And each month is a new round. And each year is a new round, when you have a business. It's very similar.
And some rounds you get cut and the doctor's about to stop it. Which is what that would have been.
Kicked in the face. I still get kicked in the head and kicked in the face. It's just a different form of it, but so I must be glutton for punishment,
Man, you gotta learn the Muay Thai, like the more evasive style, man, like Sanchai or like Lutsil. You gotta learn how to bend and move the shots.
I definitely need to do a seminar with Lutsil.
Yeah, dude. They like, here's the thing. So like there's and I didn't just bring up that analogy like willy-nilly, because where it comes into like fighters. So like I've met fighters, like this fighter that's from the gym that we host our talent camps at called Keith Kemtorn. They had a fighter named Naparat. He beat Sanchai 3 times in a row. Okay. They fought 5 times total, but Naparat's not still fighting. Sanchai still is. So if there's something, he keeps showing up.
Yeah.
He keeps showing up, and his style and way of doing things allows him to keep showing up, and your style of business allows you to keep showing up.
Yeah, well, it's like you just can't ever quit. I mean, that's the reality. It's not going to be easy. It's an interesting time, compared to 30 years ago when I started the business. There's a lot more opportunity now. It's a lot easier to do certain things, but business is still, you got to show up. I tell people this, there's a sign in our warehouse at Revgear. There's a sign above the door as you go into the warehouse, because I want everybody to see it every time they're going in and out. And the sign says, success looks easy to those who were not here when it was being earned. And, that is the reality of business. It doesn't matter our industry. You notice a brand that just appears, and it just appears for us. Like all of a sudden people know about the brand, but people have no idea what was involved getting that brand to that level, or any business to that level. Do you know what I mean? Or any level, people just like, even in your Muay Thai school, to get to 100, 150, 200, whatever your goal is in terms of students, no one has any idea how long it takes or what's involved to do that. It's a lot of work. So
yeah, man. Well, it's like, for us at Pu'u Muay Thai in Ventura, so I worked with Kovars, with Shihan Nick Wilson. And, he was one of my business coaches. And my goal was 200 students in 2017. We didn't hit it until 2025. We had COVID and all that stuff in between there.
Yeah.
Okay. So like for anybody that thinks like, oh, I didn't reach my goal in 3 months. Okay. So that's what, 8 years?
Yeah.
So that's almost 10, essentially that was almost 10-year goal that we were going into that.
It was set out to be a 1-year goal, and it became an 8-year goal.
Yeah. It's like, there's things that happen in those rounds, right? There's things that happen in those rounds. You just gotta, like you said, keep showing up. You keep working towards it. And it was one of those things like, that's still the goal, right? Yep. We're still working on it.
You didn't realize that the opponent had a mean left hook, right? And so,
dude, they're not just a mean left hook, man. They had a mean left hook, a mean left kick. They could keep you. They could keep you away. They could dump you to the ground, and they'll get away with stomping on you on the ground too.
Exactly. Closing the distance was difficult. But yes, most people don't realize how hard it is in any business to grow the business. It's always 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, and things break, which is really frustrating. You build people in your martial arts school, you train people, they quit, they leave, they go to other jobs, they do other things. It's always 3 steps
Life.
forward, 2 steps back. And so, it's just like in Muay Thai, you got to be ready to keep marching in, you got to be ready to keep marching in.
Just keep going and just kind of poker face it and keep going. And then afterwards, once you have your little rest interval, you can, man, what do I do next?
Yeah, that's right.
Keep going.
And you have people, and you look for mentors, right? Mentors who are going to coach you and be in your corner. It's the same. It's totally the same.
Absolutely. That's one of the biggest things, like the mentorship. So it's one of those things that we started doing to help out with like other people who are trying to start up their Muay Thai programs too, is like a mentorship program through us. We actually license out like our curriculum, everything that we do, all our business processes for people just visiting. And I had him on the podcast, Teep City Muay Thai in Parker, Colorado. Is the same thing. He went from $0. You helped him get from $0. He has a full blown operation now in Parker. So
that's awesome.
But it takes a mentorship, right? Otherwise, it would take much longer. It might not be as successful as fast. Like I think this guy was gonna be successful regardless. But these things, you have to have them because you need someone to bounce off these different situations you go through in business, just like you do when you're training. Like you have your coaches, like your coaching staff that you ask questions, and same reason why you trust your coach when they tell you to do certain things too.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Well, awesome. Paul, it's been great having you in today. Again, how can people connect with you? What's your Instagram?
So my Instagram is just Paul Reavlin. It's Reavlin, Reavlin. So it's Paul Reavlin. That's my Instagram. I'm also on Facebook, the same. I'm also on LinkedIn, even though I don't check LinkedIn very often, but I'm there.
So don't hit Paul on LinkedIn, okay?
You can, but it may be a few months before I get back to you. But I'm there in all those places. I'm also on TikTok, even though I don't do a lot of TikTok except laugh at funny videos.
I'm not gonna say dancing or anything, or
no. I'd like to laugh at other people doing. There's a lot of genius comedic people in this country. I realize that I see on TikTok. They're really talented. So that's good. I laugh. It makes me laugh. And my wife makes me watch dog videos. But the point is that you can find me also on TikTok. I think I just don't post a lot there or whatever, but I'm there. So maybe you can contact me there. But look, you could also email me at paulr@revgear.com. But the thing is, my spam filter is very aggressive. So sometimes I don't see certain emails. So if I don't respond, doesn't mean I didn't want to. It means I didn't get it. So just hit me up on social media, Paul Reavlin at Instagram or on Facebook. Probably the easiest way, or just send an email to info@revgear.com and the team will forward it to me for sure.
Well, Paul, Revgear, thank you so much for coming in today. Until next time, everybody, we'll see you in the next episode.